Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever completely agonized over a choice, or, totally regretted a move you made later on, we're going to fix that today. We are diving into the fascinating world of decision-making, pulling from Annie Duke's brilliant book, Thinking in Bets. This framework, it's honestly going to shift exactly how you evaluate your life choices from here on out. So let's just get right into it.
Here is the roadmap for today. We're covering 1. The trap of resulting, 2. Life is poker, not chess, 3. All decisions are bets, 4. Our haphazard beliefs, and finally, 5. Embracing, I'm not sure.
Right off the bat, I want you to pause and picture your best and your absolute worst decisions of the past year. Got 'em? Okay, now ask yourself, did you actually just think of your best and worst outcomes? Honestly, it's highly likely you did, and that right there, that subtle distinction between a decision and an outcome is exactly what we need to unpack.
Section 1. The Trap of Resulting.
To see why our brains automatically equate a great outcome with a great decision, let's rewind to the closing seconds of Super Bowl 49. The Seattle Seahawks are on the 1-yard line. Literally everyone expects a running play, but Coach Pete Carroll calls a pass. It gets intercepted, the Patriots win the game. And the next day, the headlines absolutely roasted Carroll. They called it the worst play call in NFL history. But mathematically speaking, it was actually a highly defensible decision. Look at the data. In the previous 15 seasons, the interception rate in that exact situation was only about 2%. Basically, Carroll made a statistically sound choice that just suffered an incredibly unlucky result. A bad outcome doesn't automatically equal a bad decision.
Professional poker players actually have a very specific word for this cognitive trap we all fall into. They call it resulting. It's this dangerous tendency we have to look at how things turned out, the result, and just naturally assume that the quality of that outcome perfectly reflects the quality of the decision process.
To see the real-world cost of resulting, we can just look at the business world. Annie Duke recounts consulting with a CEO who identified his worst decision as firing his company's president. Why? Simply because the replacement struggled and sales dropped. But when they walked through the actual decision process, the careful market analysis, exhaustive executive coaching, diving into competitor data, it was incredibly thoughtful. The CEO had a completely reasonable basis for the firing. But because the end result was poor, the CEO fell victim to hindsight bias. He wrongly assumed the initial decision was a mistake. So he changed his future behavior based purely on a bad outcome.
So why on earth do we do this to ourselves? Well, our evolutionary brains are literally wired by ancient survival instincts to crave certainty and avoid chaos. We evolved to seek order, right? Recognizing that luck plays a massive role in our lives is just deeply uncomfortable for us. Because of that, our fast, automatic, reflexive system creates these mental illusions. It completely tricks us into confusing a lucky or unlucky outcome with pure skill and intent.
Which brings us to Section 2. Life is poker, not chess.
To understand why our brains struggle so much with this uncertainty, consider this vital paradigm shift. We constantly treat our lives like a game of chess. In chess, all the pieces are visible. If you lose, it's just because there was a better move you didn't see. There is practically zero luck involved. But real life? It's not chess, it's poker. Poker is a game of hidden cards, incomplete information, and the heavy, heavy influence of luck and chance. You can literally make the best possible choice in poker and still lose, simply because you don't know what card is going to be dealt next.
John von Neumann, the brilliant father of game theory, actually explicitly recognized this. He knew that real-world decisions involve profound uncertainty, and that is exactly why he based his groundbreaking economic models on poker instead of chess. Real life has hidden information, plain and simple.
Moving on to Section 3, all decisions are bets.
If life is truly a game of incomplete information, that means every single choice we make is actually a calculated wager. Let's look at an extreme example to prove the point here. Professional gambler Johnny World Hennigan once made a $30,000 bet that he could relocate from Las Vegas to Des Moines, Iowa for a month. Now, to take this bet, he had to explicitly weigh the unknown variables against the massive opportunity costs of leaving Vegas, his lucrative poker games, his friends, his entire lifestyle. He took the bet, but get this, he settled it after just 2 days because he absolutely hated it. He paid his friends out just to escape early.
Now, you might not be wagering huge sums of cash on living in Iowa, but every time you take a job, buy a house, or honestly, even order a meal at a restaurant, you are placing a bet. So the absolutely crucial point here is this. You are constantly betting against all the future versions of yourself that you are not choosing. Every single choice has an opportunity cost, and you're essentially guessing which uncertain future is going to yield the best return for your happiness, your time, or your money.
Let's dive into Section 4, our haphazard beliefs. The quality of these life bets is entirely dependent on our beliefs, but our wiring here is deeply flawed. We really like to think that we hear something, carefully vet it, and then form a belief, right? But research shows our evolutionary default is brilliantly backwards. First, we hear something. Second, we instantly believe it to be true. And third, maybe, like just maybe, if we have the time or the inclination, we actually vet it later. We are incredibly credulous creatures.
And our pre-existing beliefs shape literally everything we see. A famous study of a pretty violent 1951 football game between Dartmouth and Princeton proved this. Researchers showed film of the game to students from both schools. The Princeton students, they saw Dartmouth commit twice as many flagrant penalties, but the Dartmouth students saw an equal number of infractions. These students literally saw two completely different games based purely on their pre-existing loyalties to their own school.
This perfectly leads us into motivated reasoning. When we're truly truth-seeking, we alter our beliefs to fit new data. But under motivated reasoning, we do the exact opposite. We alter the data to fit our entrenched beliefs. We actively ignore or discredit contradictory evidence, and we just blindly accept confirming evidence. We are constantly forcing square pegs into round holes just to maintain the illusion that our beliefs are correct.
Finally, Section 5, embracing I'm not sure.
The ultimate solution to all of these cognitive traps is treating decisions as probabilities. Imagine a poker game where all the cards are turned face up before the final card is dealt. One player has a 24% chance to win, and the other has a 76% chance. If that final card comes out and the player with the 24% chance wins, the initial odds weren't wrong. That specific, unlikely future just happened to be the one that unfolded. We really need to stop calling decisions wrong just because the 24% chance happened.
We see this in the real world all the time. When data analysts predict an election outcome giving an underdog, say a 30 to 40% probability of winning, and then that underdog actually wins, people immediately scream that the data was wrong. But an event with a 30 to 40% probability is mathematically bound to happen quite often. It isn't a failure of data at all. It's a failure of how we perceive probability.
Evaluating our decisions as strictly right or wrong leaves absolutely no room for the shades of gray that define reality. It's exactly like using a medical scale that only has two notches, 50 pounds or 500 pounds. It forces us into this really destructive cycle of hindsight bias and regret, because almost nothing in life is 100% certain. We honestly have to redefine what it means to be wrong.
By shifting to a probabilistic mindset, where we accept uncertainty, where we can comfortably just say, I'm not sure, we can make much better, more compassionate decisions. We separate the outcome from the decision process. Which leaves us with one provocative thought to end this explainer on. Look at the major choices in your life right now. What alternative futures are you betting against? Think about that for a bit, and I'll catch you next time.